What's good, High Noon? This video is for you if you are in a relationship, matched relationship, or a blessed relationship and are figuring out how to navigate a porn masturbation habit, behavior in the relationship. And I'm making this video because I just had a conversation today with a fine, really wise and intentional young man who was just blessed in marriage this year and has unfortunately brought a lot of his emotional baggage from his single life. And with that came a kind of dependency, unintentional dependency on porn and going to porn and masturbation to deal with the unsettled emotions of loneliness, anxiety, stress, that sort of thing. So I was listening to him in a mentor call and I was just asking him questions. And I identified in the call that it's very easy for many couples in particular to conflate a lot of things and to merge a lot of things, which becomes very murky and unclear. And so what I said to him, first of all, it's very helpful when you're navigating a unwanted behavior that you brought into a relationship. It's helpful to dissect it into three separate things that are going on. All right. There's your behavior and your emotions and the healing that is required for you as an individual that's struggling with porn and masturbation, right? Then there's the second component, which is your relationship itself, all right? The relationship. And then the third component is your spouse and how he or she is dealing in this particular situation, how the wife is dealing with her emotions, right? Which often sometimes comes with feelings of betrayal, feelings of insecurity, feelings, many different emotions that come up, all right? And I'm not saying that they're not connected. I'm saying that they are connected, but it's very tempting to conflate all of them and say, oh, because of this, this, and because of that, this. Where in reality, he brought this, unsettled emotions into his relationship. It's affecting the relationship because of how they communicate and the feelings that come up. And she is feeling certain feelings, which she has to, in her own way, in her own methods, deal with and learn how to address, right? Okay. So because I was talking to this man, I'm going to focus primarily on the first individual, which is the individual that's struggling with porn and masturbation. So with that said, I asked this man to help me identify the specific emotion that usually causes him to wanting to isolate and act out. Identify the specific moments and situations that cause a certain trigger or desire to just escape, because this man is self-aware enough to know that the porn use is not just a sexual thing. It's not just I just want to watch porn. There's a emotional need and dependency that is very subconscious. And I say subconscious because the conscientious man that he is at the mental level does not want to go to porn, especially new in a relationship. And so there's something else going on. And he identifies this, like, I don't want this in my life, but I keep going back to it. Sounds a lot like subconscious behavior to me. And so I asked him, please identify this specific emotion, right? And he started talking about work, and he started talking about fear of the future and different situations that cause him to feel maybe a lack of value or inadequate or lacking. And he's talked about, feelings of comparing himself to other individuals his age and where he is in this stage of life. And I said, okay, that's great. Now I want you to identify the specific emotion and label it and make a word for it that helps you very quickly identify the pattern. And so that you can start identifying the pattern. All right. So I identified a few words. One of them could be anxiety, right? Anxiety, in other words, is fear of the future, fear of a particular outcome of the future, whether it's near future or far future, whether it's real fear or unfounded fear, anxiety. Another emotion might be contempt, which is contempt for myself, feeling I'm not enough, I'm lacking, I am worse than others, or something of that nature, right? Contempt. Another emotion that you might label it as is lacking, which is a very common feeling that a lot of people have, is I'm lacking something. I don't have enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have a good enough, whatever body. I'm unworthy in some sense. All right. And the reason it's important to identify the specific emotion is so that you can start to actually battle the real issue going on here. Because until now, it's just been, porn is this amorphous thing that's daunting on my life. But I'm telling you guys, you probably most likely don't understand the reason you go to the porn or your spouse goes to porn. You don't understand. You don't. The reason you think you go to porn is probably not the actual reason. Sit with that for a second. There's layers and layers under this that you're not understanding yet. And so I encourage you to dig deeper. But the first level of this understanding is just, okay, what are the specific emotions that I tend to try to escape to porn and masturbation, or your spouse, if you're a spouse, tends to use to go to porn and masturbation, and label it. And here's where the magic happens. What if you could be excited about changing that behavior? What if you could create a North Star as part of your vision for yourself to be somebody that responds to these situations in different ways? Imagine if you could go to work, if that's your trigger that causes you to feel anxiety and stress and overwhelm. Imagine if you could go to work, talk with your boss, sit next to your co-workers and feel, wow, I love this. This is amazing. It's not ideal perhaps, but I love the process of working. What if every time that conversation comes up, maybe in your household or with your spouse or with your parents, that comes up and you feel anxiety or stress around? What if every time that conversation comes up, you don't feel anxiety, but actually feel excitement, right? Imagine a world, because I'm trying to frame this in a sense that there are realities out there. There are realms of possibility out there where you can be different. You can be reactive in a positive way as opposed to a negative way. You can see the same situation and respond to it in a different way. And that's where the whole North Star concept comes from, is imagining a reality in which you are a specific way and envisioning it so clearly and vividly that you actually feel that is real in your present moment, in your present being, to the point where you actually believe it's possible. And I said this to this young man. There is a possibility out there. There's a reality out there that you are excited to go to work, that you love work, even though it's not ideal, even though people objectively may or may not be wrong or selfish or whatever the thing is. But you can be different. You can choose to react to certain situations in a healthy way, in the way that you want to. And that's the power of identifying this emotion and saying, my new North Star is, I just need to learn how to deal with this emotion. And that is what is going to be your path to victory to overcoming porn and masturbation. That's going to be it. Because the reason you have the behavior is because you have brought into your relationship years, perhaps even decades, of unsettled emotions that you never learned how to deal with. Because when you were a young man or woman, a teenager, and you felt stress or anxiety or boredom or loneliness or frustration, you found the easiest way for you to deal with those emotions, which was probably going to porn and masturbation. That's all that happened. That's it. That is it, my friends. That's it. It's not an excuse. It's not a justification. It's not a rationalization. It's not an excuse for you to act out and do whatever you want. It's to help you understand. That's it. That's all I'm trying to paint a picture of, to help you understand, for your own sake, for your spouse's sake, what is actually going on, so that you can address it in a healthier way, instead of feeling shame and remorse and guilt all the time, and anger and resentment to each other, especially to your spouse, on both ends. You don't need to. It's understanding will help you soothe yourself and feel at peace, so that you can address the real thing going on here. And the real thing going on here is that you have unsettled emotions that you have learned to deal with in a very specific way. And it's not starting with porn and masturbation, by the way. It starts much earlier than that. It starts with, when you feel an emotion, what's your first reaction? Is it to connect, or is it to isolate? Is it to introspect, or is it to numb? Is it to go to God, or is it to go to squash the emotion and pretend that God doesn't exist? As God is not watching, that God is not with you, to pretend like you're not loved. What's your first reaction? Usually, in most cases, it looks like this. I'm feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and I'm just going to go to my room and isolate myself. I'm going to go on the internet, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever your thing is, Reddit, the news, and I'm going to just numb myself. Netflix, which sounds really innocent, my friends, but you know very well that that's where it starts. That's the single micro decision. That's the fork in the road we're talking about here, is that you have an opportunity to isolate or to connect. And if you can notice those things in those moments, you will start to observe yourself more clearly, and you will start to make better decisions when you're faced with those decisions of, do I do this or this? The first step is to label these emotions. And when you start labeling it and saying like, oh, that's that thing I'm dealing with. That's anxiety, or that's contempt, or that's lacking. And when you identify exactly what's going on, you will start to notice it more. You'll start to observe your behavior more, not your behavior, your thoughts. You'll start to observe your thoughts, and therefore you will start to observe how your body is reacting to those thoughts. And then the magic happens, and then you can choose to go a different path. Because most of the way there is just being self-aware enough to observe it. To observe it and say, that's that thing happening again, and that's not who I want to be. That's not part of my North Star. That's not me. It's not you. It's not the real you. You notice it, you take a step back and say, okay, I don't want that. That's not who I want to be. And you take a different route. That's what it takes. And so I told this young man, I encouraged him, find one emotion, just one. Of course, there's many different emotions that you probably deal with: stress, anxiety, boredom, lonely. We all deal with them, right? But choose one for now. Just choose one. And focus on responding to those situations in a different way. Instead of anxiety, imagine if you could respond with excitement. Instead of anxiety about the future, what if you could respond with excitement about the future? Ooh, interesting. Instead of overwhelm and stress, maybe you can respond with gratitude. Instead of anger and resentment, maybe you can respond with love, compassion. That's it. And I encourage you to just focus on one kind of primary emotion at a time. And the reality is that many times they influence and impact the other emotions that we feel. For example, feeling a sense of lack or insecurity or contempt are often related, and anxiety are often related. And if you can focus on one, the chances are you'll notice and observe other patterns and other behaviors to the point where you can pinpoint it, address it, go in a different direction when it counts, way before you're at the edge of the cliff, my friends, about to jump or not jump, way before then, before you act out or not act out, way before then. And you can see it, like, this is the moment where I have to decide to isolate or to connect. And that's how you do it. That's the path to victory. All right. Lots of love to you guys. I think you understand what I want you to do for your assignment, if you will, homework for this video. Identify the emotions, whether you struggle with porn, masturbation, or not. It really all stems from the same desire we have to experience love and connection in our lives. But the problem is that we've misused that desire, that innate, beautiful desire for connection. And instead of connecting, we've tended to isolate in times of need, in times of difficulty in our lives. We tend to isolate. And this goes for porn struggles or not. And if you don't struggle with porn, if your spouse doesn't struggle with porn, I encourage you to look closely at your behavior and notice when you do feel the tendency to isolate. It's very subtle. It comes in all kinds of forms. Social media, just video games, just wanting to be alone. And it's okay to be alone, but what do you do when you're alone? And that's what matters, right? Sometimes it's okay to be alone, but connect deeply to God or to yourself. And that's entirely possible as well. When I say isolate, I mean to numb. When I say to connect, I mean to find a deeper relationship with God through people, through self-reflection, introspection, whatever it is, guys. All right, hope this is helpful. If it is helpful, I'm glad. Let me know. God bless. See you.